Lecture 10, Gore Slaver and Slave RP in Modern Times, and How It Changes the Normal Masters and Mistresses Too. A lecture by Sarakan Thorn. Masters, mistresses, free men and free women, Kajara and Kajarii. I greet you, you know me. Sarakan Thorn, 43 years a Gorean, once a publisher, always a critic. Tonight I speak about something that many avoid, not because it is taboo, but because it is uncomfortable. I speak about slaver and slave roleplay in modern times, and how it changes the normal masters and mistresses too. Let us be honest from the start. Gore is harsh. The books are harsh. Slavery on Gore is not a game, but we are players, and the game must be playable. So how do we balance the harshness of the lore with the reality of modern roleplay? How do we respect the books and respect each other? I give you no easy answers, only a framework, a conversation, an invitation. Part 1, The Old Way. For years, Gore RP had a certain rhythm. The slaver was the teacher. He held the knowledge. He set the rules. He evaluated step by step whether a slave was good enough. The slave was the student. She learned positions, litanies, rules. She was tested. She was rated. She was either BTB or not. There was structure. There was clarity. But there was also rigidity. Many slavers became instructors, not storytellers. Many slaves became students, not partners. The RP became a classroom, not a stage, and many players left because it was not fun anymore. Part 2, The Modern Expectations. Today, many players want something different. From the slaver, they want a storyteller, not a teacher. Someone who can write intrigues, not just training programs. A partner who sees the slave role player as an equal OOC while maintaining the hierarchy IC. A merchant who focuses on sales, trade, and drama, not just discipline. Someone who accepts that chores can be FTB, that rivalries are fun, that IC conflict is not OOC hostility. From the slave, they want someone who understands the role, not as a BDSM sub, but as a Gorean Kajira. Someone who accepts that control is part of the role, that a slaver must set rules and enforce them. Someone who does not hide behind OOC limits like no collar, no force collar, no brand, because those are not limits, they are a refusal to play the role. Someone who accepts that chores are not optional, but that they can be backgrounded if both agree. These expectations are not wrong. They are just different and they clash. Part 3, The Points of Conflict. Let me name the main conflicts, not to judge but to clarify. Conflict 1, Training. One side says, a slaver should not waste time teaching noobs. Notecards can help, but RP is for stories, not for lessons. The other side says, training needs structure. The books describe steps, evaluations, chores. A good merchant does not assume a slave knows everything, he tests her. Resolution. There is no single answer. Some slavers enjoy teaching. Others do not. The key is communication. State your preference OOC. Find partners who share it. Conflict 2, Control. One side says, a slaver should not control the slave's RP. She is a partner, not a puppet. The other side says, control is the core of the role. A slaver sets rules and punishes disobedience. That is IC control, not OOC dictatorship. Resolution, IC control is essential. OOC control is toxic. The difference is intent and communication. If both players understand the difference, the conflict vanishes. Conflict 3, Chores. One side says, chores are boring. No one wants to RP scrubbing floors for an hour. They should be FTB. The other side says chores are the core of the slave role. A slave can be ordered to scrub at any moment. That is the point. Resolution: chores can be backgrounded, but they cannot be ignored entirely. A compromise: I performed my chores for 8 hours. Now I rest. That is FTB. But a master who wants to RP a chore scene should be allowed to. As with everything, communicate. Conflict 4. Note cards and paperwork. One side says, note cards are OOC chores. Contracts and papers can be emoted briefly. The other side says, note cards and papers are RP props for merchants. They are BTB. They add depth. Resolution: use them if you enjoy them. Ignore them if you do not. But do not force your preference on others. And do not call the other side bad role players. Conflict 5. Noobs. One side says, noobs who do not know the role should not be ignored. Someone has to teach them. The other side says, noobs are not the responsibility of every slaver. If a slaver wants only experienced partners, that is his right. Resolution: be clear OOC about what you want. If you do not want to teach, say so. If you are a noob, look for trainers. Do not expect every slaver to adopt you. Conflict 6. Princess slaves. One side says, limits like no collar, no brand, no force collar are a sign that the player does not understand the role. The other side says, everyone has limits. Some are new, some are learning. Resolution: call it what it is, a mismatch. If a slave has limits you cannot accept, do not play with her. But do not insult her. Respect her boundaries and move on. Part 4. How modern RP changes the slaver. The modern expectations change the slaver too. No longer just a disciplinarian, he must be a merchant focused on trade, sales, and profit. A storyteller writing intrigues, conflicts, and dramas. A networker building relationships with buyers, other slavers, and curia agents. A leader not of slaves only but of a house. A pragmatist: he knows that not every slave is perfect. The best slaver is not the one who yells the loudest. It is the one who creates stories that players remember. Part 5. How modern RP changes the slave. The modern expectations change the slave too. No longer just a student, she must be a partner equal OOC, even when subordinate IC. A character with desires, fears, rivalries, and growth. A communicator: she knows her limits and states them OOC. A professional: she understands the role. The best slave is not the one who can recite the longest litany. It is the one who brings the role to life. Part 6. How modern RP changes the free. The free men and free women are not untouched by these changes. Masters and mistresses who own slaves must also adapt. Customers and buyers must respect the slaver's craft. Sim owners must create environments that welcome this modern RP. Part 7. The tools. For slaver. OOC communication: ask before the first scene. Note cards as reference, not as a test. Scenarios, not lessons. Write raids, sales, rivalries. Delegation: let a trainer handle repetitive parts. For slave. Know the role, read the books. Know your limits, OOC. State them clearly. Emote, not just react. Describe feelings, not just actions. Accept IC control, that is the role. Part 8. The golden rules. 1. IC is IC. OOC is OOC. Do not confuse them. 2. Communicate, before, during, and after. 3. No one owes you their time. 4. Teach if you want. Learn if you need, but do not force either. 5. Note cards are tools, not tests. 6. Chores can be FTB but not ignored. 7. The best RP is collaborative. Part 9. The different kinds of slaves and their RP. Not all slaves are the same. House slave Kajira/Kajiras serves meals, cleans, attends. RP focuses on etiquette and obedience. Pleasure slave, fun slave, sexual purposes. RP is intimate and intense. Male pleasure slaves serve free women or gay men. Dancer, performer. RP focuses on practice and performance. Male dancers exist, though they are rarer. Singer or musician entertainment at feasts and parties. Both female and male. Cook or baker works in the kitchen. Both female and male. Server, tavern slave, serves in paga taverns. Male servers are sometimes called paga boys. Healer or herbalist, medical skills, both female and male. Labor slave, primarily male. Mines, fields, construction, strength needed, not beauty. Personal slave, body servant, attends to a master or mistress directly. Both female and male. Punishment slave, sentenced to hard treatment, both female and male. Earth slave, recently abducted. RP focuses on confusion, fear, resistance, both female and male. Male slaves can be pleasure slaves, dancers, singers, body servants, servers, cooks, healers, miners, fighters. A male slave is not a kajira. He has his own dignity, his own challenges, his own stories. Part 10. Slavery in different regions of Gore. Slavery is not the same everywhere on Gore. The region changes everything: the rules, the expectations, the terminology, the treatment. R, the civilized standard. In R, slavery is formal, structured, and almost bureaucratic. Slaves are property, but well-treated property. The caste system is strong. Terminology: Kajira female, Kajiras male. Training: systematic, with clear steps and evaluations. Treatment: firm but not cruel. Good slaves are rewarded, bad slaves are sold. RP focus: etiquette, presentation, public service, auctions. House slaves get spare time. In R, a well-run household gives slaves time to rest. Torvaldsland, the North. The Torvaldslanders have no slavers and no kennels. They take thralls and bondmaids through raids. Terminology: bondmaid female, thrall male. No kajira, no kajiras. Training: less formal, learn by doing, obey or feel the whip. Treatment: hard, slaves work, fight, and serve. No pampering. RP focus: survival, hard labor, loyalty to a clan, raids. No spare time. In the cold north, everyone works, including slaves. The Tahari, the desert. In the hot southern deserts, slavery is extreme. The desert is unforgiving, and so are the masters. Terminology: similar to R but with local accents and customs. Training: harsh, obedience is beaten in, mistakes are punished severely. Treatment: brutal but not random. A master may be cruel, but he is also protective of his property. RP focus: heat, danger, submission, survival. No spare time. The desert demands constant vigilance. Shendi and the jungles. Shendi is a trading port, more relaxed than R, more exotic than Torvaldsland. Terminology: varies. Many earth slaves are sold through Shendi. Training: less rigid, more focused on practical skills. Treatment: varies by master. Some are kind, some are not. RP focus: trade, exploration, exotic settings, jungle dangers. Some spare time. In the humid heat, slaves are given rest periods. Port Car, the pirate city. In Port Car, there is no law but the captain's word. Slavery is chaotic. Terminology: standard Gorean but with sailor slang. Training: minimal, learn fast or die. Treatment: unpredictable. A master may be generous one moment and cruel the next. RP focus: danger, unpredictability, loyalty to a captain, survival. Spare time varies. On a ship, a slave rests when the captain says so. The Pani Islands, the Eastern Mystery. Beyond the known maps, the Pani have their own culture. Slavery is influenced by ancient earth traditions, samurai codes, rituals, and deep honor. Terminology: unique terms, different words for different ranks of slave. Training: strict, ritualized, focused on discipline and art. Treatment: respectful but unforgiving. A slave is part of the household, not just property. RP focus, rituals, honor, isolation, discovery. Spare time exists, but it is structured, ritualized. The Thalassa Islands, the hidden south. My own discovery, the Thalassa. Slavery there is different. Slaves can earn freedom. Terminology, unique. Training, practical. Learn to sail, learn to fight, learn to serve. Treatment, hard but fair. A good slave is valued. A bad slave is thrown to the sharks. RP focus, sea voyages, freedom as a goal, escape, discovery. Spare time is earned. After work, slaves rest, sing, tell stories. The lesson, a slave from R will not survive in Torvaldsland the same way. A master from Port Car will not be accepted in R. Know where you are, know the customs, adapt or fail. Part 11, the nuances. Even within Middle Gore, the region from Kos to R, not everything is identical. Different drinks, Paga in R is not the same as Paga in Port Car. Different meals, a feast in Turia is different from a feast in Thentes. Different songs, each city has its own ballads, its own tavern songs, its own slave chants. Different dress codes, what a slave wears in R is not what a slave wears in Torvaldsland. Different customs, in R, a slave may be required to kneel in a certain way. In Torvaldsland, no one cares about the details, obedience is what matters. Use these differences. A slave traveling from R to Torvaldsland should be confused. A master who buys a slave from the Tahari should notice that she kneels differently. These nuances are not obstacles. They are story opportunities. Part 12. The spare time of house slaves. Never forget, in Middle Gore, house slaves have spare time. The books describe slaves resting, talking, eating together, even laughing. A slave is not a machine. She is a human being with desires, fears, friendships, and rivalries. What do slaves do in their spare time? Rest and recover from work. Talk with other slaves, gossip, share news, complain about masters. Eat and drink. Practice skills, dance, music, serving. Sleep. Scheme. Do not forget to RP the quiet moments. A slave kneeling in the corner watching the fire. Two slaves whispering in the kitchen. A slave stealing a moment to herself, dreaming of freedom. These moments are not boring. They are character. Part 13. The sadistic breaker versus the craftsman slaver. Many slavers in SL Gore play the same role, the sadistic breaker, the one who delights in pain, the one who breaks slaves psychologically, emotionally, sometimes physically. They whip for fun, they humiliate for entertainment, they destroy for the sake of destruction. But ask yourself, who wants to buy a traumatized slave? A slave who cowers in fear is useless as a server. She will spill the paga. A slave who weeps constantly is useless as a dancer. She cannot perform. A slave who is psychologically broken is useless as a pleasure slave. She cannot please. A slave who is terrified of men is useless in a household with male guests. A traumatized slave is not a valuable product. A traumatized slave is a liability. The craftsman slaver. A good slaver is not a sadist. He is a craftsman. He starts with raw material, a captured woman, a purchased girl, a disobedient slave. He assesses her strengths and weaknesses. He trains her not with random cruelty but with purpose. He disciplines her not for pleasure but to correct. He rewards her not out of kindness but to reinforce good behavior. His goal is not to break the slave. His goal is to form her. What buyers want. A slave who is obedient but not broken. A slave who is skilled, trained in serving, dancing, or other arts. A slave who is beautiful, not just in body but in demeanor. A slave who is proud in a strange way, proud of her skills, proud of her household, proud of her master. A broken slave has none of these qualities. The example of Jason. Jason was brought from Earth as a slave. He was trained as a fighter, a gladiator, a pit slave, a warrior in chains. His training was harsh, brutal, demanding, but it was not breaking, it was forming. His trainers did not want a broken animal. They wanted a weapon controlled, disciplined, effective. They pushed him to his limits and beyond. They tested his body, his mind, his will, and he rose to the challenge. He became one of the best fighting slaves on Gore. Free women sought him out in secret at night, risking their own status. Not because he was a slave, because he was desirable. He earned respect from masters, from free men, from other slaves. He never lost his sense of self. He was owned, but he was not broken. And at the end of his story, he became a free man of Gore, a true Gorean, not by birth, by achievement, for slaver role players. Ask yourself, am I playing a sadist or a craftsman? Do I enjoy breaking slaves or forming them? Would I buy my own product? The answer to these questions will tell you whether you are playing a believable slaver or just a bully with a whip. Part 14. Medical care and the possibility of freedom. Medical care. Slaves have the same medical treatment as free men and women. In Gore, there is no second-class medicine for slaves. The long-life serum is available to everyone, slave or free. A girl purchased 100 years ago is still as young as the day she arrived. Her skin does not wrinkle. Her hair does not gray. Her body does not age. The physicians of Gore do not ask whether a patient is slave or free before they treat them. A fever is a fever. A wound is a wound. A valuable slave is treated with the same urgency as a wealthy merchant. The priest kings gave the serum to all humans on Gore, not just to the free. It is not a privilege, it is a gift. This means the slave who kneels before you may have been on Gore for 300 years. She has seen empires rise and fall. She has served 3 generations of masters, and she is still young, still healthy, still valuable. The possibility of freedom. Slaves can become free. It is not common. It is not easy, but it is possible. A slave who performs an exceptional service, saving her master's life, protecting the household, uncovering a plot, may be granted freedom. Some masters free their slaves in their wills. The slave outlives the master and walks free. In some cities, a slave who has served loyally for a set number of years may petition for freedom. The laws vary, but the possibility exists. The free woman who condemns a slave may one day be in chains herself. The slave who serves well may one day stand beside her master as a free woman. This possibility changes everything. A slave who has hope is more motivated to serve well. A master who may one day free a slave is more likely to invest in her training, her skills, her loyalty. The contrast with SL Gore practice. In many SL Gore sims, the opposite is true. Medical care is minimal or ignored. Slaves are treated like disposable objects. Freedom is never mentioned. Slaves are property for life with no hope, no future, no possibility of change. Slaves are broken, not formed, traumatized, not trusted, kept in fear, not given hope. This is not BTB. This is a caricature of Gore. For role players. If you play a master, ask yourself, have I given my slave the long life serum? She has it by default, the books are clear. Do I treat my slave's medical needs seriously? Is there any hope of freedom for my slave? Does she know it? If you play a slave, ask yourself, does my character know about the long life serum? Does she have hope of freedom? Does she strive for it? Is she broken, or is she forming herself even in chains? Part 15. The Silken Web. A slaver who is an agent of the Silken Web, the secret intelligence network of the Priest Kings, is not just a merchant. He is a spy master. His motivation is not just profit. It is the survival of Gore. His slaves are not just property. They are assets who can carry messages, identify enemies, and be planted in enemy households. A slave who knows she works for the priest kings has purpose. She is not just a servant, she is a secret agent. A spy master does not break his assets. He invests in them, he trains them, he builds their loyalty. This makes RP less gratuitously cruel and far more interesting. Part 16. The Slaver Who Did Not Sell Rental Business. One slaver I know had a problem that most slavers would envy. He had more than 10 slaves and none wanted to leave. They stayed because they wanted to stay. Most slavers would see this as a crisis. Their business model depends on turnover. Capture, train, sell, that is the cycle, but this slaver adapted. He created a rent-a-slave business. He did not have to sell his slaves. He rented them out for events, for parties, for special assignments. The slaves returned. The clients were happy. The slaves were satisfied, and the slaver prospered. The lessons. A slaver who treats his slaves well is not a bad slaver. He is a smart slaver. Loyalty is more valuable than fear. A slave who stays is an asset that generates ongoing income. If your slaves do not want to leave, do not force them out. Find a way to use their loyalty. A rental business creates ongoing relationships and steady income. For role players, would your slaves stay if they had a choice? If not, you are playing a jailer, not a slaver. Part 17. The Structure of a Slaver House. A well-designed slaver house has several key areas. Each serves a specific purpose in the training, housing, and presentation of slaves. One presentation room for rich customers. This is not the public auction block. This is a private room, elegant, discreet, and comfortable. Rich buyers do not want to stand in a dusty market. They want to sit on silk cushions, drink fine paga, and inspect slaves in a setting that reflects their status. Soft lighting, not harsh torches. Comfortable seating for the buyer and his companions. A raised platform where slaves are displayed. Private viewing areas for customers who want discretion. Decorative elements, banners, trophies, symbols of the slaver's success. 2. Training room. A dedicated space for training new slaves. This is where slaves learn obedience, posture, and skills. Whipping posts and restraint benches for discipline when needed. Mirrors for posture and movement training. A small stage for dance and presentation practice. Storage for training props, collars, leashes, gags, training whips. Hard floor for kneeling practice and position training. 3. Kennel holding area. Secure housing for slaves not yet sold or currently being trained. Individual cells or shared quarters, depending on the slaver's style. Basic amenities, sleeping mats, water, sanitary facilities. A central area for meals, rest, and socialization. Lockable doors for security and to prevent escape. Slave registry, note cards or ledger with names, origins, training status. 4. Medical room. A small room for health checks, treatment, and recovery. A medical table for examinations. Basic healing supplies, herbs, bandages, ointments. The long life serum, available to all slaves. Restraints not for punishment, but for examination of difficult or injured slaves. Cleaning supplies to maintain hygiene. 5. Office for the slaver. A private space for the slaver to manage his business, keeping records, ledgers, note cards, slave registries. Meeting clients, private negotiations for high-value sales or rentals. Planning missions, if the slaver is an agent of the silken web. Storing documents, sales contracts, rental agreements, letters of credit. Displaying trophies, symbols of successful captures or high-profile sales. 6. Rental contracts area, if the slaver offers rentals. A dedicated space for managing rental agreements, Rental contracts are different from sales. Duration: 1 night, attende, a full harvest season. Purpose: serving at a feast, guarding a caravan, entertaining guests. Fee: negotiated based on the slave's skills and the assignment. Return conditions: the slave returns unharmed, or compensation is paid. Deposit: to ensure the slave's safe return. This creates RP opportunities, negotiations, disputes, damage claims, and the occasional slave who does not want to return. Additional features optional. Courtyard for outdoor training, exercise, or displaying slaves in natural light. Kitchen for training cooking slaves, or for preparing meals for the household. Living quarters for the slaver, comfortable space, reflecting his wealth and status. Guard posts to secure the house and prevent escape attempts. A small shrine if the slaver follows a particular religion or cult. The lesson: a slaver house is not just a kennel. It is a stage, a school, a fortress, a home. Each room serves a purpose. Each purpose creates RP opportunities. Do not just build a cage, build a house. Part 18, the slaver house in summary. A slaver is not just a merchant. He is a trainer, a leader, a spymaster, a storyteller. His house is not just a kennel. It is a stage, a school, a fortress, a home. His slaves are not just property. They are people with skills, with hope, with stories. Play them that way. Appendix: why GOR slavery RP is not BDSM and should never be. This is important. Many players confuse the two. They should not. BDSM is a consensual adult practice between equals. It has safe words. It has boundaries negotiated OOC. It is about pleasure, trust, and mutual satisfaction. Gorean slavery is not consensual. The slave has no choice. There are no safe words. The power imbalance is absolute. It is not about pleasure. It is about hierarchy, ownership, and the natural order as Norman wrote it. The confusion. Many players bring BDSM expectations into Gore. They want a master who is actually a dom. They want a slave who is actually a sub. They want safe words, limits lists, and aftercare. These things are not wrong, but they are not Gorean. The danger. When BDSM expectations are imposed on Gorean RP, two things happen. One, players who want real Gorean RP are frustrated. Their slaves do not act like slaves. Their masters do not act like masters. Two, players who want BDSM RP are disappointed. Gore is not a safe, consensual playground. It is harsh, unforgiving, and non-negotiable. The solution. Keep them separate. If you want BDSM, play BDSM. There are communities for that. If you want Gorean slavery, play Gorean slavery. Understand the difference. The hard truth. In Gore, the slave has no rights. The master has absolute authority. There is no safe word I see. There is no aftercare I see. The slave is property, nothing more. This does not mean players cannot have OOC boundaries. They should. But those boundaries are OOC. They do not exist IC. A slave who says, I have a limit, OOC, is being a responsible player. A slave who says, I have a limit, IC, is not being a slave. For role players, know the difference between IC and OOC. Do not bring BDSM expectations into Gore. Do not bring Gorean expectations into BDSM. Respect both communities by keeping them separate. The bottom line. Gore is not BDSM. It never was. It never should be. The books are clear. If you want safe words and limits lists, play BDSM. If you want absolute ownership and hierarchical submission, play Gore. But do not confuse the two. Closing the circle. I have spoken long enough. The old way is not dead. The modern way is not wrong. Gore is large enough for both. So find your partners, state your preferences, write your stories. And when you disagree, talk, not I see, OOC, like adults. That is not less Gorean, that is more. The circle is yours.